Welcome to Miss Smith's Math Tutorials. I'm Miss Smith. In this video, we're going to be talking about converting radians to degrees and then degrees to radians. Radians and degrees are both ways to measure angles, and you want to be able to move from one to the other depending on what you're doing. It's pretty simple if you just know the formula. To move from a degree to a radian, you just take the degree, you multiply by pi over 180, and then your result is your radian. And then to move from radian to degree, you just take your radian and you multiply by 180 over pi, and your result is your degree. Looking at this first example, if we have 50 degrees and we want to change it to a radian, we just take our 50 and we multiply it by pi over 180. Another way of writing 50 is just 50 over 1. Sometimes that makes this a little easier to see. And remember that when we're multiplying fractions, we just multiply straight across, and then we reduce if we can. 50 times pi, we would just write as 50 pi. And 1 times 180 is just 180. And then we would want to reduce this 50 over 180. We get a long decimal. We want to see that decimal as a fraction, so we hit math, enter, enter. And we get 5 over 18. So our resulting answer would be 5 over 18, but don't forget we still have that pi in the numerator. So 50 degrees as a radian would be 5 pi over 18. All right, let's try another one. So you'll notice this next one is a negative angle measure, so negative 270 degrees. We want to take that to a radian. We follow that same formula, so we write negative 270 times pi over 180. And we can always put that negative 270 over 1. So negative 270 times pi is just negative 270 pi. And 1 times 180 is just 180. You definitely want to use a calculator to reduce that. Turn that into a fraction, and we get negative 3 over 2. So that tells us our answer is negative 3 pi over 2. If we had 380 degrees, this will be our final one going from degree to radian, we would just take our 380 and multiply it by pi over 180, put that 380 over 1 to make it a little easier. So 380 times pi is 380 pi, and 1 times 180 is just 180. 380 divided by 180, that would end up being 19 over 9. So we have 19 pi over 9 as your radian. Okay, now let's try doing the opposite, going from radian to a degree. I'm giving you 3 radians here, and we're going to follow that basic formula. We're going to take the radian and we're going to multiply it by 180 over pi. We're starting with a radian of pi over 3. And we're going to multiply it by 180 over pi. So pi times 180 is just 180 pi. 3 times pi is just 3 pi. So at this point, notice that we have a pi both in the numerator and the denominator. So those actually cancel each other out. And 180 divided by 3 is 60. Our answer would be 60 degrees. Pi over 3 as a degree is 60 degrees. If we had 7 pi over 6, and we would multiply that by 180 over pi, so let's multiply straight across. So 7 times 180, that actually gives us 1260, and don't forget our pi, over 6 times pi is just 6 pi. At this point, our pi's cancel, and your pi should always cancel when you're moving from radian to degree. And 1260 divided by 6 is 210 degrees. All right, one last one together. If we had a negative 2 pi, then we'd say, all right, negative 2 pi times 180 over pi. And you can always make anything a fraction by putting it over 1. Negative 2 pi times 180 gives us negative 360 pi. And 1 times pi is just pi. So our pi's would cancel, and we are just left with negative 360 degrees. Okay, here's 2 for you guys to try. I will post the answers in the video description below. This has been Miss Math Tutorials.